Good morning. We're back in this fabulous studio. And today I'm with these two gentlemen who is really like the leaders of Xenai Digital.
Good
We've got
morning.
Rob and Leonard, who is our partner at Xenai.
Hi.
And Luke Blouse, who is the head of delivery for Xenai too.
Morning.
Are you guys happy to be here?
Excited.
Very excited. The
Woohoo!
morning after World Tour.
We're
Who
crazy.
booked this?
I blame Darcy and Lachlan. Their studio is so popular. Okay, well, you already started it. World Tour yesterday. Probably our, fourth, fifth, Robin? Yes. Seventh? Well, no, there was COVID. He was the one who reminded me, right?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so we had a little bit of a pause. You know, I'm really excited to join World Tour every year because it's the opportunity to be once again dazzled and razzled by the most beautiful and most elegant display of the art of the possible, right?
Absolutely.
And to be honest, it still gets me excited.
Yeah, same. It does. It's good to have, like, because we talk to clients all the time about strategy and we're ahead of the product. So we're like, this is the next step for you. And it's good to have that reaffirmed by Salesforce saying this is important.
Absolutely.
So they often come out going, actually, I think we do need data cloud. And I'm like, that's what we've been saying.
Yes, exactly. And it's also how they piece the whole thing together, right? And again, it's the art of the possible. It's always so inspiring, you know, with what the technology can do. But today we're here to talk about the art of the possible. Do you like that?
The what if?
The what if. Let's leave it to Matthew McConaughey, Robin. Today it's all about no bullshit. No bullshit implementation. It's all about the possible. It's all about the practical, art of the practical. All right, let's start with our first question. What do you think clients need? You know, they're all like inspired by, you know, what they saw yesterday, being able to talk to a bot who could do everything for you, right? Let's talk about the readiness. In order for them to get to that position, what do they need to do?
I think they need a clear vision. We get a lot of clients who go, we want Salesforce, but they don't really know what they want it for. So having a clear view and a commitment from their executives and their broader team in order to make that come to life and drive that change. It's one thing to build them something, but they need their team to use it as well. So making sure they've got that, and also committing the time. Like they've got day jobs.
Yes.
So instead of 40 hours a week and then a couple of minutes here and there working with us or another partner, they need to dedicate time to that and dedicate the roles to that in order to succeed. So
yes. So you talked about the vision. They can't just say, I want what they said there on stage.
Yeah.
The vision, and also sort of like the business problem they want to solve, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
What is the pain there, right? And then you also talked about like the adoption, like in terms of bringing their employees in the journey with them and assigning resources.
Yeah.
Right. At a very minimum, what do you think are the resources that they need to have full time?
It can depend on the size of the engagement and what they're doing. So a smaller one may just require someone who wears multiple hats. Perhaps they might act as a PM and a BA. For a bigger transformation, they should have individual resources for those roles. They should have BAs. They should have multiple stakeholders providing requirements. They should have a project manager, in some cases a coordinator, in some cases their own admin. It will really depend. And something Robin always does really well in the pre-sales is map out what those org structures could look like. So we identify who those roles are. If they have gaps, we can discuss how to fill those and vice versa. So there's plenty that can be done there.
Yes. And that also includes executive, right? We need to have a regular touch point with the executive. You mentioned the executive buy-in. What would be the cadence, you know?
Again, it probably varies, but yeah, at least having in the early days, probably having something fortnightly just to make sure when you're going through those key decision-making processes that they have oversight and input to that. If it's too infrequent, then it might shift too far from what their initial vision was if they're hands off.
Exactly.
Then once you're in more of a build state, you could probably drop that because they are busy people.
Well, this is important. This is a transformation of their business. No one's too busy for for this implementation. No, like that vision, it really needs to transcend into like very clear roadmap, right? So that becomes the plan that gets carried out, and it just needs to make sure that there's still alignment with the executives and the other stakeholders and the business users to ensure that you have really a smooth implementation. What about you, Robin?
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Luke said. That the way I like to frame Salesforce is like a product. So if you were thinking of an app startup, you would think of it like a product, and you'd have a vision for that product, and you'd have a roadmap with regular releases.
Yeah.
So thinking about Salesforce like a product is the same thing. It's like, I need a product vision, I need a product owner, I need a product manager, which is synonymous with a project manager. Product manager is maybe a senior stakeholder, and a product owner is like a sponsor for the product. So you have all these roles that you typically have, and they need to align around what the roadmap is and do regular releases to the business. And that happens through having regular meetings like steering committee meetings, etc. So through that, you follow a lean agile approach, and you can deliver value quickly to the business. If you come into it without those skills and without the cadence and without the vision, you end up having like a really long waterfall process, and often the internal dependencies aren't met. So you don't end up getting the value that you expected out of the product. So it's really aligning everything in an orchestration around a continual flow of delivery for Salesforce. And I don't think a lot of organizations think about that. They think one and done. They think, I'll get a partner, 20K, we'll get it in, and then we're good, But what they really need to do is internalize the change and transform internally to make the best use of that product.
Absolutely. And we always say, right, when you hire a resource, you don't just give them an onboarding and not train them all the way through and upskill them, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with a very sophisticated technology like Salesforce. Do you have this in your book, this whole readiness guide?
Yes. Well, the book, I mean, I've been changing the title every week, but the book was actually all about readiness.
Your book is also agile, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. But no, it's all about readiness. And when I think about the what if, or the art of the possible, the definition of maximizing possible is actually being ready for any situation.
Absolutely.
So if you define what does ready mean to me, if I'm ready, my options are very open.
Yep.
If I'm not really ready for something to happen, my options are very lean or very thin.
Yeah.
So that's all we're doing, is saying the organization, in order for them to gain the maximum advantage from the investment, is to be the most ready as they can for it.
Yeah.
And that means having the right skills internally, having the right vision, having the right budget, having all the ducks in a row.
Yeah. And that's really what we do, right? We see the art of the possible, and we make it to the art of the practical with a readiness guide that we bring them through in the journey. And this is what I love about what you do. So you sort of shape this when you meet a client, right? You sort of shape it for them. I was laughing because yesterday you met our client child fund for the first time, and you were already like architecting in your brain. I could see in your eyes like you're putting it in a Miro board. You're like asking them about, what are you using? Where does your data sit? This is Robin again going through his Miro. So can you please walk me through like your process when you meet a client? How do you make sure that they're sort of, helping them in terms of that readiness?
Yeah. Well, I guess understanding the architecture, it's very simple. When you see enough businesses, they all have the same systems. It's always consistent. So with Child Fund, for example, I knew they use Marketing Cloud because that's where we help them. I was like, what do you use for your CRM? And I think they have Salesforce CRM. But I was like, what do you use for your fundraising? Because it's sometimes different. There's fundraising systems. And every nonprofit has a series of systems that have to do things like they need a payment gateway.
Absolutely.
That receives donations. They need recurring donations. But they may also be a provider of services. So they may have volunteer management or case management or program management. So these common business processes that they need a system for.
Yep.
So it's just about identifying what to use for that.
Yep.
It's the same as I don't know, what kind of shoes do you have? I know you've got to have shoes because you walk. So what kind of shoes do you have?
Okay, wow, I love how practical you made that.
And then you're like, well, do you wear socks with your shoes? They're like, no, I haven't thought about wearing socks. And it's like, well, are your shoes stinky? Yeah.
What? I'm not wearing socks right now, Robin.
Well, you're a girl. It doesn't count for you.
No, I guess what you're trying to ascertain is really where the data sits.
Yeah.
What sort of business function, as you mentioned, how these technology talks to each other,
Mm.
and how it connects the customer,
Yeah.
the systems, to the employees in
That's
order
right.
for them to have, a seamless interaction, right?
Yeah, every organization is a technology business these days. Every organization, you can think of it like an application, but it's really a series of different applications connected to each other with humans operating them and customers interacting with them. But if we think about them like an app, it's like, what is the future of that organization if it was just a mobile app? What would that be like?
Yeah.
And that's the thinking I think we need to get to, is like, how do we automate these businesses? Because as much as I love the nonprofit sector, I see so much waste with employee cost on moving bits of paper from left to right.
I don't think that's limited to just not for profit, and
Yeah.
I know it impacts us because it should be all about, the impact that they create, right?
Mm.
Well, we're trying to help with that, right?
That's right.
Let's talk about the data. That's a big thing. Like, everyone's talking about AI. And, to be honest, for me, I'm like, I feel so nervous for customers because if they don't have, the foundational strategy for the data, it's really hard to maximize the value of, the RAG and all the automations, the LLMs, if the LLM's not there. Can you talk about in order for them to leverage AI, what kind of foundational work they need to do with their data?
Yeah, I think they need to bring it all together. I think you said it famously, getting all of your old data together is like digging up the bones of your organization. You've got some systems that have left these footprints of data, and you've got them sitting out the back door somewhere. Bringing that all together and tidying it up into a usable structure just to make it available for AI to use is really good. Yes, AI can use unstructured data, and yes, it's possible, but it's more likely to hallucinate if it's not organized correctly. And it's just what we can do. It's like AI is like the next employee, and we need to give them all of the information to
Knowledge.
train them.
Yeah.
And if we give it to them in a shit way, it's, the results can be a bit shit.
Don't give your technology and your employee a shit way, of organizing your data.
Exactly.
Right?
And it's simple because every organization, similar to systems, there's standard tables that every organization has, like orders, order line items, accounts, contacts, products. These are things that are standard.
Yeah.
And you can map all of those data things into the standard relational model for every business.
And Data Cloud's already making that very easy,
That's
right?
Exactly. So Data Cloud provides standard data models that you can just map into, harmonize your data, unify the data. It's beautiful.
Yeah. It's really elegant and beautiful, and it's very dazzling. So that really is the conduit in terms of, how you could power the automation of AI. And it really forces that conversation, right? It puts that conversation at the center of the business, which is really good. Let's talk about what makes customers successful. Let's shift over to you.
Yeah, so there's several things that can contribute to the success. I think we touched on a few of them before, where you've got your executive buy-in, you've got a clear need, vision, pain points you're looking to address, those types of things. And then you need to bring the team on board with that excitement. So it's all well and good. We could build something that the team we're interfacing with want, but if their broader team aren't willing to, or perhaps don't understand what's been done, they're not going to adopt that. And it's not going to be a successful project, even though the product itself might be great. The outcome for the client isn't going to be what it needs to. So that's a big one. And I think the executive sponsors can play a really big role there in making sure that they're driving that communication throughout. If they just kind of leave it for organic adoption, people are going to stay on their spreadsheets and what they're used to. Change is scary.
Yeah. Well, how does that happen? Like, how do we increase that adoption? To be honest, it makes me really sad. I hear sometimes customers say, and employees say, oh, we're just being asked to use this to, micromanage us, or we don't even know why we need to use this because it's so hard to use. We're already using this other, and it makes me really sad because I'm like, oh my gosh, you're being given a Ferrari and you don't want to use it, right?
Yeah.
But how can companies do it? How can they increase the adoption? What is the what is a practical steps for them to bring these employees to the journey?
I think a lot of the time it's probably due to the employees not understanding the benefit of it.
Exactly.
So for us, when we go through that process, we want to look at why we're doing it. What's the business value? Is it ROI? Is it increasing revenue? Is it going to be reducing their cost base, perhaps scaling each resource's ability to increase sales, perhaps? So making them aware of the why and what we
Yes.
believe they're going to get out of it is crucial to that. I think it's really a common mistake for all businesses to assume that what one person may understand in terms of, okay, yep, that's a clear benefit. To people on the ground, they might not be seeing that. They're not thinking in terms of the overall revenue, perhaps. They might just be focusing on getting through day to day. So making that clear is really going to help.
Yeah, and also for them to understand that this is being, the company's investing in this amazing technology for their jobs to be easier, for them to be able to perform better, right? And, like you said, making sure that they see the vision themselves as well, that we're going through this as a company and we're in this journey together.
Absolutely. Like in the case of being able to scale your sales capacity, like that could have a direct impact on a salesperson's commission.
Absolutely.
So making that clear to them is, obviously they're going to get on board.
Absolutely. But the understatement as well is that when you're using a platform like Salesforce, it also elevates not just your commission, not just your performance, but your career, in so many ways, right? Because globally, it becomes sort of like your passport and your badge that I've been using Salesforce for a long time. Companies are very, willing to hire you and even poach you. I mean, we've seen this happen so many times because it's like the bleeding edge technology and you already have the experience to use it. From your perspective?
Yeah. I mean, we've seen careers transform over their use of Salesforce. Like we saw one of our favorite clients yesterday get a golden hoodie, and it's just, you can see his career going on a Salesforce trajectory.
Unbelievable.
And he would have just been a marketing guy otherwise, So,
well, we have to congratulate Robert Lopez,
yes, Robert
for
Lopez.
getting the golden hoodie. We're very, very
cool.
proud of you.
Yeah.
Yes.
But one of the favorite approaches I think we took internally many years ago is to name Salesforce. So we named it Rex, and it was the robot experience. And the whole idea was
redefine experience.
The Robin experience.
The Robin experience.
But the whole idea was to humanize it, because it's like in the future it will be a robot and it will help us do our jobs. You will talk to it like another human or another employee. But right now you're still typing into it and clicking buttons and it's still a bit manual. But the future is coming very soon. And I think if organizations can help their employees think about Salesforce or the technology as their assistant, that's the best way to perceive it for change, because people don't like change and they think about it as additional work or additional learning, or it's hard. And even internally, like I won't name names, but I just remember bashing my head against the wall with an old employee she just didn't want to write in digital notes. Like she's like, I need to write minutes in a book. And I was like, well, I don't want to pay you to write it there and then to type it there, just type it in the call.
You must really love that employee, Robin.
She was amazing.
Your worst nightmare.
Yeah, but Luke here is amazing. He's the only one that's really adopted my method of taking notes on calls. But yeah, things like that, it is hard to change people. And even from a digital company perspective, we're very digital. And even getting our own employees to use our tools is difficult.
Yeah. Well, humans are creature of habits, right? We want to be comfortable with what we're comfortable with. But again, that's why it's so important to get into that why. But give me practical steps. I am like a very large company. I hear you both. Okay. I need to make sure that my employees are part of the journey and I make sure that they adopt. Give me practical step in 1, 2, 3.
We need a champion.
Okay.
So we need someone that's going to advocate for Salesforce and the investment. And from the top down, they need to have executive buy-in all the way down to the employees that are using it. I think 2 would be having the necessary budget. So they need to have a strategic vision and investment for it. It's very hard to do a transformation if you've got a very small budget. And the budget isn't just for a partner and it's not just for the technology, it's for your internal team doing the change.
Yeah.
No organization will change if they have 2 hours a week of one person internally to think about it. because the change isn't just the technology, it's the process change.
Yep.
I think 3 is probably going back to what Luke was saying, is a vision. You know, we've got to have a vision for the future of the organization. So take travel, for example. So we work with a lot of airlines, and airlines, the current status of airlines is difficult. It's a very thin margin business. But if they want to take it and grow it, it's like, what if airlines turned into a virtual reality experience or space travel?
Yeah.
You know, what's the future of the industry and how can we use technology to get there?
Yeah. I think it would also be a good idea, like even in the sales process, when they're about to sign, once they've decided, okay, we're going with Salesforce, once we've decided we're going with, Xenai Digital, like get the business users together and walk them through like how the process was made, why we made this decision. It's all about the why. This is our vision for our business. These are the pain points that we're going to be solving. This is the timeline. This is the roadmap. And what's in it for me? We always forget about the WIFM. You're talking about like, because we're getting Sales Cloud, you're going to get better efficiency. You'll see the efficiency in your day-to-day job. You're able to access all of these features and functionalities. And if you're talking to the marketing team, what is the vision for them? We're able to build this, enrich the customer journey because of Marketing Cloud. And if it's Service Cloud, right? And really like selling it to them, right? Once the committee has been sold, okay, it's time to sell it to the whole organization. So that's how you bring them to the journey as a starting point. And then explaining to them that, we're going to do an MVP implementation. This isn't going to solve our problem right away, but we just want to go live with, the fastest path to value, right? The low hanging fruit. But after the initial implementation, we're going to go through the business process in your day-to-day, in your workflow with like gathering the user stories, which becomes an individual roadmap for each business function. Do you think that's a practical way of like really bringing in the journey?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if the C-suite are not present in the change, if they don't care about it, they see it as a marketing activity, it's very hard to drive that change through because they need to push it. They need to say, this is the future of the organization. They need to get the board on board.
Board on board, yeah.
But the board has to approve the budget. Otherwise, there's no project. There's no investment in the change. And if there's no investment in the change, there's no change. So it's just going to be almost a flailing investment. Someone will buy the technology. They'll be stuck into the licenses. Yeah. So it really needs to be paired with the right budget and investment.
Yeah.
I think with communicating that vision too, you could start to drip feed some resources for their team to learn about. So there's trailheads. There's obviously a wealth of knowledge there. Yeah. They could just start doing basic trainings like that to familiarize themselves with what it actually is. If they don't have experience, it could be quite terrifying because there's people who might have a negative perception for no other reason than they've heard someone say, oh, it's hard. And they go, oh, well, my job's about to get harder. They might be saying, like the C-suite is saying, it's going to make my job easier, but how do I know that? If they can get hands-on in a trailhead, even here and there, on the way in.
Yeah, like lean in, right? Like I've actually seen that happen so many times in an organization when we go in companies and we share the vision to the entire team. And then, some star in the making comes up to us and say, I want to learn about this. And they just sort of like have that sparkle in their eyes. And you know what? After a period of time, after a few years, I've seen them really crush, really accelerate their careers in the tech industry because they leaned in. Right? So everybody who is in tech now had an opportunity. And as soon as you hear that your companies are using Salesforce, they invested in this, like just, put your hand up, right? Like lean in, get into Trailhead. Yesterday at the keynote, they said, oh my gosh, I was blown away of the fact that 85 million, am I getting it right? 85 million resources are required to be able to keep up with what AI can do. It was at the keynote and I'm like, wow, that's a lot of resources. And there's a huge issue in terms of productivity. So with all of these incredible technology comes a lot of opportunities as well. So that we need people to step up. We
Yeah.
need people to step up massively.
And I think it's no secret that like AI is coming very quickly. Organizations, like there's a lot of redundancy in the
Yeah.
workforce across the world. It's not a unique thing to any one organization. All organizations are having to consider their manpower as one of their largest costs in the business.
Yeah.
So they are naturally going to cut that
Yeah.
to make sure it's profitable. It's not a happy thing, but it's just the reality of business today.
Yeah.
So these people, if you're in an operational role, it's really important to step your career into a technology role.
Absolutely.
And it's really important to do that because, you know, us coming in as technology partners, we may not know the business process. So we really need the
Absolutely.
operational people that
Yeah.
are SMEs to come in and
Yes.
learn the technology so we
Yeah.
can all change.
Yeah. Yeah. So their industry expertise,
That's right.
coupled with the ability to harness the power of technology is what's going to make them extremely
That's
valuable
right.
to businesses.
And it's all declarative. It's like citizen developer stuff now. So, you know, anyone can go in and build an agent in Agentforce, 20 minutes. It's easy. It's not like it used to be where you need to be a developer to work with technology.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm still amazed that I'm in technology. If only people know how retarded I am.
I can't log in. What's my password?
I can't even get through like my password. So many, man. I'm like, I don't know my one password. Anyway, maybe we shouldn't include that.
We're in good hands.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about executive buy-in. What is the reality? So we see this happen as well. We see these amazing champions, trailblazers, you know, middle managers who are ambitious and they just know in their hearts that we need to get our organization, you know, in this transformation with Salesforce. But some executives are still living in the past, right? Some executives are saying, well, you know, we don't really need it because, I mean, to be fair, their businesses are still growing. Their businesses have been around for like hundreds of years and they've always stood the test of time and still flourished, right? How do we help these trailblazers, the middle managers, these champion in terms of getting the executive buy-in for their organization?
It's really challenging. Like I've still got clients that believe in on-premise solutions, and I'm always like, "Oh, do you have 2 data centers in different locations with armed guards?" Because that's what you need for data security these days. But I think
It's funny.
for me, it's really understanding the future. You know, like I'm probably a little bit bullish on where I think the future is going, but I really believe by 2030, most jobs will be gone. Most organizations will be AI run. And because of that, you need to start that AI journey as soon as possible so that you're not overrun by a very efficient, highly performant business.
Yes.
Maybe 2045, maybe 2030.
So
somewhere
if
in
you
between.
are employed in that business, I want practical steps, right?
Yeah.
If you are the one employed, what would you do?
Well, so I would start the AI journey today. It's really, you need to really take advantage of
What
this
does that
new
mean?
technology.
Like, okay, you're employed. How will you start an AI journey?
So whichever technology you're using, you need to look for the AI advantage within that technology. If you're using legacy technology that isn't investing in AI, you need to move to a platform that's going to be around for a long time.
Yep.
So, you know, the Googles, the Microsofts, the
Yep.
Salesforces,
Yep.
even Oracle, like
Yep.
those technologies are making massive investments in AI.
Yep.
If you're working in a point solution that's keeping its head above water,
Yes.
it's maybe not the right long-term platform.
Yeah. So you've identified, like, okay, we are living in the dark ages.
Yeah, that's right.
I think I want Salesforce. I was at World Tour yesterday, and I think I want to get
Yeah.
Salesforce. I love what they're talking about at Keynote. What would you do? How would you build a business case? How would you convince your executives? How would you justify, you know, the investment? Like, what are the practical steps that you're going to do to bring your organization in this AI journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the board to agree, it needs to be based on cost reduction and
Yes.
revenue increase.
Yes.
And the whole idea with most businesses, they have a variable cost around tied to their revenue. So as my revenue grows, my costs will grow.
Yes.
If we can shift that model so the cost stays flat or reduces, but my revenue grows. So I've got a scalable EBIT.
Yep.
That's really the change that we're looking for
Yes.
with this business case. And you can't do that without AI, because AI is unlimited manpower.
Mhm.
You know, so if we can build that business case towards AI, it's pragmatic and it's not clear how
Okay.
exactly it's going to work. So it requires leaders that have future thinking. And it may be that some leaders need to be taken on the journey around what does the future hold. Maybe you need a futurist to come into the organization and talk through what is the future of this organization and what would happen if an AI native business took over or started competing with
Yeah.
you.
Maybe send them the what if video from
Yeah.
Matthew McConaughey.
So we had a session with a nonprofit
Yeah.
last year, and it was the executives talking around the future.
Yeah.
So we looked into the next 50 years of their industry.
Yeah.
And the number one big risk that was identified in the research that we collected beforehand, but also in the workshop, was an AI native competitor that didn't have employees, and it did everything they did, but it did it very rapidly and it could change in real time. And that was the big fear, is like, oh, wow. And no one had really thought, what if an AI native business was there that didn't start with employees? It started as an AI business.
Oh, wow.
So they will come in and work much faster. They'll work 24/7 and adapt to the market in real time.
Yeah.
And work at scale with no employees and be highly profitable.
Yeah.
So it's like, what does that mean for any industry? If
Yes.
you've got a big, bulky business with
Yeah.
lots of employees that's slow to move and slow to change.
Yeah. So that's the, again, art of the possible. Let's turn it to the art of the practical. So from what I'm hearing from you, you say like, I'll bring the organization into an AI journey, like get an external consultant to sort of provide this roadmap and vision and
Yes.
shape this vision
Yeah.
for the business. Because like, let's face it, sometimes it's always external consultants who could provide that expertise as
That's
well, right? And they would really unearth the pain points or the business problems in order for them to turn them into opportunities
Yeah.
and show that revenue growth and how you could reduce your costs.
That's
right?
right.
So that forms the business case, right? And then you present it to your executives, and then hopefully the executives, well, hope it's not a strategy. You convince your executives to then present it to the board.
That's
right?
right.
So what if the board says, not this time?
Which is what the boards often
Always say.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what I mean. This is,
Yeah. I mean, it's the board needs to go on the same journey. So
Yeah.
boards need the literacy around the future,
Yes.
around data, around AI. They don't have that, they're not the right board members, or they need to start learning.
Yes.
You can't have a board driving a company's direction that isn't literate in the current technology.
Yeah.
So that's a very challenging one. But I mean, that future vision, that should be at the board level ideally, but they need to make time and space for that.
Yeah.
And especially now with a lot of organizations that are very like profit driven, as they should be, it's hard to create space when they're like, well, how can we cut costs further and do more with less?
There was a study at Gartner that shows, what's good. Like AI is really different. It's a different breed of technology. Gartner did the study where the priorities for CEOs right now is like at its highest to be AI ready. Second, 50%, 80% of executives are still, their number one priority is growth. And then second is to be AI ready as an organization. So Luke, all right. So let's shift back into delivery. Boards approved. Executives are ready to execute this AI ready vision and they're ready to bring their team in this journey. What is it that makes implementation fail?
There's a number of things, obviously. One that comes to mind is not allocating the right time for the task to be taken. So people work 40 plus hours a week on their day job, and then the board and the C-suite have said, okay, we're doing this AI journey, but we're not willing to invest in either offloading your current work or bringing other people in to support it. It's never going to work if you can only throw a few hours sort of here and there between other functions. So that's a really big one, making sure you've got the people in place internally in order for it to succeed. Having that clear view on what we're doing and why as well. So it's one thing to receive a statement of work which has a scope that says, okay, we're doing that. If you look at it, because perhaps when it's sold pre-sales, there might be, okay, we could probably do it this way.
Yeah.
The reality is you might need to achieve that same functional outcome using a different method, but that may not marry up exactly with what's on the scope there. So making sure they've got a clear understanding of that. So if we do hit roadblocks, we can work through those things. I think also it's perhaps not quite in the delivery for a given project space, but having that understanding that it's not a discrete one-off activity. It's not something that we come in and do. It's one project that runs 3 months and then we go away, and then all of a sudden their team has the ability to maintain that and develop it. It's a really common thing we see where clients are of the view that there's a once-off project, and then it's with them to grow this large platform which is going to sort of scale their business and drive all this revenue. It needs an ongoing investment.
It's not set and forget.
Exactly right. It's something that needs to be grown over time, incrementally improved, and that's going to make their lives better, their jobs, their business go better as well.
It's really important to have that ongoing training as well, the constant optimization. And this is what we're seeing with our clients, right? Where every month we're aware of the backlog that is based off the roadmap, and make sure that the skills that are required in order for us to deliver the backlog is available, right? Internally to them, to run alongside us. And of course, even on our side, definitely on our side, the right skill set. And that skill gap always, we always see it, even, as a partner ourselves, right? Because it's growing so fast, the functionalities are growing so fast, the capability of the platform growing so fast. So we always need to keep up with that in order for us to really take advantage of that.
Can I ask Luke a question?
You want to be the host now?
So what do you see as mature internal capability of a client versus a not mature capability? Like, what's the big difference in clients that are running it really well themselves with maybe a little support from us versus other clients?
I think the ones that succeed have got real conviction and the ability, perhaps they've either by proxy, perhaps the ability to drive that change. And whilst we spoke about how that internal adoption is going to be crucial and understanding the vision is going to be key, with change, there's always going to be some resistance somewhere along the line. So ideally, maybe you bring 60% along with you. The other 40 might need a little nudge from someone who's got the ability to do that. So having that conviction rather than just go, I don't really want to bother them. It's like, no, this isn't optional. We are doing this, and this is why. You still got to communicate that vision with them. So someone with the understanding of it and the conviction to make it happen, someone who's put the time into it. Prior experience, not necessarily with a Salesforce platform, but understanding those sorts of processes and what they could look like. If they have come from a world where it's just spreadsheets, it's going to be a bit of a harder jump. Not that it's impossible. We can always get them where they need to be. But if they've worked with platforms which do some similar things and they know their processes and they've tried things and failed before, then they're going to be much better equipped to go through the highs and lows of a project.
Yeah, and I think that's the hard thing, is organizations that have people on the client side that have never done it before. It's very different to having clients that have done this before, and they're like, I know what needs to be done. I know I need to have the right people involved, because they're learning as well. And it's like, if they're the decision makers on their side, it's like, it's very hard to get them to learn, and they will fail inevitably before they actually learn. I see clients where they've got someone that's done Salesforce projects before, like they rapidly work differently. They're like, we need this, we need that. And they're on a path to building internal capability. And I see the most mature clients as actually having the same as what a Salesforce partner has internally.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that they are like a Salesforce
Yeah.
partner to their own
Yeah,
business.
they build the necessary skills required. You know, it's as I was listening to you, Luke, I think it's really important for people to remember that it requires courage, right? Any change, transformation is change, right? Adapting to this new world of business and a tech-driven world. It's not just in business, right? It really requires courage, and it really requires that you're willing to make mistakes, right? Everyone is making mistakes. Like, I think yesterday they said that Agentforce just landed in September. So this is a new technology. No one will be an expert, right? But this is the right time to lean in and learn as everybody learns. And, don't be afraid to take risks and ask questions.
There is a lot of fear, though.
Yeah.
And it's understandable with these metrics, like 90% of digital transformations fail. That's been going around for a long time. And it's true, because they often do fail to hit the mark. And that's created this fear of decision making. So we're seeing this death by RFP at the moment, where leaders are too afraid to make a call on which platform to go with.
Yes.
So they're sitting on the fence being like, I don't want to be accountable, and we're going to RFP the shit out of this. They come up with these massive RFPs, which sets them up for
rigid.
failure.
It's so rigid.
That's right.
And
They've got a million requirements, and anyone quoting on that is like, well, that's going to be millions of dollars to do, and it's going to take years. And it's the wrong approach to transformation. Because they are going to fail at hitting the mark on the RFP, because it's a perfectionist approach.
Yeah. And it's also good to make small bets anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
Because obviously when you are trying to get a huge platform like Salesforce, it's not necessarily a small bet. But once you've decided what is the right platform, like even with the implementation, don't make like a 2-year transformation. Try to get the MVP. I always bang on about the MVP, because it allows you to increase the adoption and the skills, and you're able to learn from your mistakes. And it's okay to learn from mistakes.
Yeah. And it doesn't need to be one platform either. Like a lot of organizations have a blend of Microsoft and Salesforce. Like we've got clients that use Azure.
Yes, that's
Databricks,
a reality. Yeah.
And it's like they work really well together now, because they're all cloud. They all have APIs. It's not that hard. And we've also seen with CrowdStrike, if you have dependency on one provider, it can create fragility in the business.
Yes.
So it's not a bad thing to have multiple different technologies in the business to create redundancy. So it's really about saying, like, I need to pick some horses, what's good at what, and what's going to provide long-term success. Because the reality is it's now or never. Like, if you don't start building in the right direction, like the future's coming very rapidly, and if you want to change in 3 years, you'll already be behind, because you're going to start again.
Yeah. Well, we need to remember the fortune favors the bold.
That's right.
That's for all organizations, like all these trillion-dollar companies. They all jumped in and made mistakes, iterated, learned from their mistakes. That's just how it works now in this tech-driven world, right?
And it's funny, a lot of the conversations we have every day are like, a chatbot's a great idea, like it's like, oh, it's going to save you money. But it's like, we're still convincing people of like 10 years ago technology capability of why it's a good idea, when really organizations need to shift their focus to what's available right now, which is agentic AI. And that's the future, that's where they're going to get that real scale of operational value.
Yeah.
I think it's also something to consider when embarking on an Agentforce type journey. We've spoken a lot about communicating the vision to your team, making them aware that it's not here to replace you. It's here to help you, because I think there is a lot of fear about, you've mentioned already today, how perhaps there's going to be entirely AI businesses. That's going to be scary if you're
I'm going to have to provide better context for that. The reality is, if you do not cooperate with this really innovative and really sophisticated technology, you could get replaced.
Yeah.
You could get replaced, right? But if you get in there, like really use this tool, you're probably going to be leading in terms of using this platform in the organization.
That's right.
There's so many job cuts that's going to happen, and it's really scary. I'm scared for a lot of people, but that's
Absolutely.
why we all need to step up, upskill, and jump in and really take advantage of the capacity of this incredible technology.
That's right. Yeah, I think the party line, like what's communicated is, oh, it's going to increase productivity. But the reality from the board is we need to cut costs. And the fastest way is through payroll. And it just is what it is. But we don't tell people that.
No, but that's the reality of business. And that's been going on for as long as, business has been formed.
I think there's a really interesting near future, which is agents talking to agents.
Yeah.
So it's like if today I'm thinking about advertising, so my ad gets seen 15 times and then someone will buy it. But the future is going to be, I talk to my chatbot and I say, find me the best shirt that fits me and will make me look good. And the chatbot will talk to 15 companies and find the best quote and get it delivered, So it's really like, how can my business be ready to talk to other AIs?
Interact, cooperate, and work well together with.
And if I'm searching ChatGPT and saying what's the best shirt provider for me, how do I do SEO for chatbots? And the reality is I need to be the best organization.
Yes.
It's not about like gaming the system anymore. It's about being the best organization that AI will naturally find.
I don't know if you guys feel this. For me, if I'm doing something a bit manual, I'm like, what AI platform can I use for this now? It's like, I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, at this day and age, like, this is a bit too manual. And then I'll search what AI platform is good for this, right? Okay, let's talk about ROI. My favorite topic. It's what makes the world go round. Why is ROI important?
Well, if you pay money to Salesforce and to partners and don't get any return, it's a bad idea. And a lot of organizations continue to do that without any idea of the return or any way to track it. And it's like, it's just throwing money. You may get some return, but if you're not consciously trying to get it, it's very hard. And there's levers to get those returns, but unless people are focused on pushing the levers, then they won't get the return from the lever. So it's intuitively the right thing to do digital transformation. But is it really materially changing anything, or is it just a sinkhole for budget?
Yes. What about you?
Yeah, it's obviously, it's a large investment, not only from a financial perspective, but time perspective. So you need to make sure it's justified. Setting it up from the start is going to make it 100 times easier. Retrospectively, as we've experienced, we do work with clients to help them try to discover their past ROI. It's quite challenging. It's a time-consuming exercise. So setting it up to be measurable with clear goals, with an ROI hypothesis to begin with, is going to make that a whole lot easier moving forward. We are starting to see large license expenditures get highlighted when the board or the C-suite go through their budgets, and Salesforce sticks out like a sore thumb a lot of the time. So we're often seeing our clients now getting queried about, okay, well, how can you justify this expenditure? They know intuitively that we have seen an increase, but how can they attribute that to the work we've done? And if they haven't set up for that, they're going to be struggling to make that justification. So getting that as part of your process, setting up a way to report on that on a regular basis in an automated way, so that when your CFO comes knocking and says, we need to get rid of this license, you can say, no, we don't. Like, look how much money it's bringing us.
I love that. That's exactly right. But even if the CFO don't ask, as the person who is asking for this very large investment from the company, because you're draining resources, right? These are resources that could be obviously spent in other things like, employee engagement or marketing or, operation. If you're like asking for this large amount of money, you need to be able to say, this is the value that this will create, right? This is the reason why I want to spend this, because I want to move the business forward. And it's also very clear and very succinct in terms of showing how it progresses the company, right? Numbers talk, right? It's like, it's very clear. Numbers don't lie, right? And like what we said, every year, companies should grow. right? And this is what CEOs and boards are looking for. Otherwise, you'll be very nervous. Where is the company headed? So that's the importance of ROI. Why is it so hard for companies to get ROI?
It's a bit of a fuzzy, well, it's some series of fuzzy metrics. Like, unless you're consciously looking for them and you baseline and measure the change, they aren't tracked in many places. So there's common metrics we look for, like CAC, customer acquisition cost. You have to count the number of customers you acquired and all of the cost of sales, including your salespeople, your marketing spend, your ad spend.
Yeah.
You have to divide that by that and then measure a baseline as well. So unless people are actively doing that, there's not really a system that is saying this is your CAC. Nothing tracks that, and it's different for different customers as well. So those kind of numbers you need to really look for in the data and understand.
Yeah.
And it's not a per customer thing, because you can't say, I acquired you last year. This is every ad you saw. This is every time someone talked to you. It's very hard to measure bottom up. You have to measure it bottom down, top down.
For me, the technology we're talking about is Salesforce, right? Yeah. It's very clear cut. I understand why you would say that it sounds fuzzy. But for example, sales and marketing cloud, and even service, right? It serves a very specific purpose. I think what happens with companies is they get lost in terms of, the sophistication of what the platform does, that they always forget what it's made for. Like Sales Cloud is meant for you to be able to increase your sales capacity.
That's right.
For efficiency, right? For you to be able to increase your sales, right? If you're buying Salesforce, you need to make sure that after a few years, my sales have grown, at this amount of time, at this X multiplier. Yeah. And especially if you power that with marketing. Like I have a simple girl math, right? Depending on the number that's why I always ask every customer, I'm like, okay, how big is your data? Because for me, that's like, how big is your data? It's revenue, right? I want to see every month, this is the number of data we have. These are the number of journeys we have. These are revenue generating assets, right? It has to work hard for you. And this is the power of the platform. And if I'm not seeing that, honestly, I'm so frustrated.
Yeah, why? Right. And more often than not, no one knows. They're we're not sure. We're not sure.
It's so wrong. You're doing it so wrong. If you don't even know the ROI. And this is where you really get rid of all the bullshit. Let the numbers speak. This is what it's all about, the ROI. Yeah.
It's funny that you mention assets, because I don't think people think about these things as assets. Like, say a journey that runs, a welcome journey. It may not have that much ROI coming out of it, but it's an algorithm.
Absolutely.
And that algorithm or automation, that is an asset that the business owns. With every asset, like owning a boat, you've got to maintain the asset as well.
It's an asset class.
Yeah,
it is a revenue generating asset class. The number of data that you have, the number of revenue generating journeys you create.
Yeah, that's right.
These are hardworking assets.
And you need to optimize
constantly
and
so create 100.
That's right.
There's no limit, right? And then you understand your cost of acquisition with your utilization. But if I spend this much with my utilization cost, with my partner cost, this is how much revenue I should get.
Yeah.
And partner with your CFO and partner with your CEO in terms of forecasting how the next year could look like, because you're building these many revenue generating assets.
And there are also products as well, in the sense that I can iterate these and constantly work on them. Like if you build a welcome journey, it's not just a one and done. That's your welcome journey for the next 10 years. But you're constantly evolving it. You're always going to need a welcome journey.
Yeah. There's nothing that makes me sad more when we're like, oh, they've done their marketing cloud implementation. Where are the journeys? I want to calculate how much money we're making for the company, right? But for some reason, companies stop. They get busy. And I always wonder, what are they busy with?
That's right.
What are they busy with on a day-to-day?
What's more important than automating the experience?
Than growing your company, especially in the not-for-profit space. Obviously, I know there are complexities. But sometimes it's really like cutting out all those bullshit.
Yeah.
All right. We've rambled on for so long. I want to hear from you both. As a partner of Xenai Digital, we've been doing this for, quite some time now. I think we started when we were still very young. I think we're still young. for over 10 years of your experience, what is your advice to companies right now to be successful with their Salesforce implementation and now their AI implementation?
I think it's vision, and vision is like, what is the perspective of the decision makers, the board, all the way down to the employees of the future of the organization, and how can we align around that future? And it's that literacy. If the board don't have the literacy around data risk or around AI and what the future competition landscape would look like, then they're also not going to have it. So having that eyes on the future, I think, and eyes on what is the future of this organization in this industry.
It's not even the future, it's now. It's here.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Question.
As a head of delivery for Xenai Digital, what is your advice to companies going through this transformation who has the ambition to be AI ready in order for them to have a successful implementation?
I think don't be scared of incremental releases. Like it's really hard to deliver a perfect outcome immediately. There's too many stakeholders, too many different moving parts. So if you're willing to bite off an MVP and then iterate as you learn, you're going to end up with a more suitable product because you're taking those learnings. If you've got a team who is unfamiliar perhaps with the platform, you might have the best intentions and come up with these really clear set of requirements, and they may be irrelevant in 3 months' time once you start using it and go, oh, it works this way. So having a set of non-negotiable MVP requirements, building that out, observing it for a while, and then iterate on that, build it out from there. Because if you build it to what you thought was perfect 6 months ago,
yes,
you are locking yourself in for potentially the wrong platform.
Yeah, use it as a launching pad. Well, thank you so much. You heard it from the experts, and hope you got some value out of this. Thank you.
Thank you.